So this is technically the third video on this lesson, and we're just going to continue with the homework here. So if it's in y equals mx plus b form, it's really easy. In this case, the m is -1/2, the b is 1. So you always start by going to your b value, and that's your y-intercept value. So you go to y-axis, you go to 1, you put a dot right there, and then from that point, you rise and run according to your slope. So if your slope is positive, it would be going up. If it's negative, it's going to be going down. That's what tells you the rise being positive or negative. But the run, we're always going to look at it as positive. So the negative sign doesn't belong to both top and bottom. It only belongs to the top. Okay? Even if you had a negative sign on the bottom, you move it to the top, because we always want to look at the run as positive. So we know it crosses at 1. I need to go down 1 over 2. So down 1 over 2 this way, put a dot right there, and then connect your dots. Whoops. So there we go. That's our graph. We're done. Easy. Number 3. This one, the b value is what? What's the b value? 1. So it crosses right here at 1. And then from that point, my rise is 1, my run is 2. So from that point, up 1 over 2, and put a dot right there. Connect the dots, and you're good. Now let's say you wanted to extend the line further this way. You could just use that pattern of up 1 over 2 and just go backwards, over 2, down 1, over 2, down 1, if you wanted to. You don't have to, but if you don't have a ruler and you want to make it longer, that's a great way to do it. Number 4, it crosses the y-axis at -1. That's the b value. And then from that point, I need a rise and a run, and the slope is 3, but you want it as 3 over 1. So you are going to go up 3, 1, 2, 3 over 1. You always run to the right. So there's your coordinate. Connect your dots. You have your line. So these have been super easy. Why have these been super easy? Because it's in slope-intercept form. Okay. Number 5 is not in slope-intercept form. And on the previous video, I explained that you get it in slope-intercept form. That's step 1. Rewrite it in slope-intercept form, divide everything by 2, and then you could graph it. Number 6 is not in slope-intercept form. So what do I do? Minus the 1 to get the y by itself. You can't subtract the 1 on the 3x, but you could subtract it on the -2. So our new slope-intercept form equation is y equals, because that cancels out, 3x minus 3. So you have to identify your b value and your m value, which is 3 over 1. So you know now that it crosses at -3 down here. And then from that point, you're going to go up 3 over 1. So from that point up 1, 2, 3 over 1. You end up at the coordinate 1, 0. Connect your dots, draw some arrows, you've graphed the line. Number 7, it's not in slope-intercept form, so what would I do right there to get it in slope-intercept form? Subtract. Subtract what? 2. Subtract 2, thank you. Subtract the 2 to the -1. Your new slope-intercept form equations, y equals 4x minus 3. So you start by identifying your b value, which is in red, and then knowing your slope being 4, but you need it as a fraction, so put it over 1. So if you know your m and you know your b, you're able to graph it. It crosses at -3. From that point, you're going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, and you'd put a dot right there at the coordinate 1, 1. Connect the dots, and you'll be good. Put some arrows on it. Number 8, this requires 2 steps to get in slope-intercept form. Again, you want y by itself, so you're going to have to get rid of that +2 by doing the opposite, -2. What you do to one side, do to the other side. And we end up with a -3. -1 minus 2 is -3. And let me rewrite everything. I want to have my equal sign, my 6x, bring down my 3y. So now I need to get rid of that multiplication of 3 right in front of the y by doing division. So you divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. You're going to end up with y equals 2x minus 1. And of course, you need to identify the m and the b. Now the m value, you want it in the form of a fraction. So that 2, just put it over a 1. That way you could see rise over run. And the b value is -1, which tells you that it crosses the y-axis at -1, and put a dot right there. You always start with the b value. And from that point, you're going to rise 2 and run 1. So you're going to go up 1, 2, and over 1. And let's put a dot right there. Connect the dots. Put arrows on it. We're done. Let's move on to number 9. Actually, number 10. Number 9 was explained on the previous video. Remember, the m is 2. The b value is the number that's being added or subtracted. So if you don't have one added or subtracted, it's obviously 0. Now number 10, same concept. There is no b value. So the m value is -3, but you could write it as -3 over 1. And the b value is the number that's being added or subtracted at the very end. So you could put +0 if you want. But that means that it simply crosses the y-axis at 0. It doesn't mean that it doesn't cross the y-axis. It means that it crosses it at 0. Now from that point, you're going to go down 3 over 1. So you're going to go down 1, 2, 3. Always run to the right. Connect the dots. You have your graph. Let's move on. Number 11. A lot of people get weirded out with number 11. You gotta think again. What is your m value? The m value is the number in front of x. What's the b value? The b value is the number that's being added at the very end or subtracted at the very end. So if somebody said, what number's right here? There's a 1. It's not a 0, because if it were 0, there wouldn't even be an x, right? It's a 1 right there. So the m value is really 1 over 1, right? There's an invisible 1 that you would put over 1. The b value, since there is no b value, you could put a +0 if you wanted to, so the b value is 0. So it does cross at 0, and from that point, you're going to go up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1, and put a dot right there. Up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. You could even use that pattern backwards to make it longer the other way. Connect the dots, put some arrows, you're good. Number 12. There's two different ways of thinking of an equation that has a letter equal to a number. Like right here, you could think of y equals mx plus b. Now, y equals the slope in front of x plus b. Is there an x value? Is there an x value here? No, there is no x value. So that means since there is no x value, you could say y equals, there is no x value, but there is a b value of 2. So right there, it crosses the y-axis, the b value is 2, and the slope is 0, which means that it's totally flat, which means that when you graph it, it would look like this. But we already learned this in the previous section. Whenever you have y equals 2, you just go to your y-axis to the value of 2, and you draw a horizontal line through it. Compared to number 13, if you have x equals 2, you go to the x-axis, you put a dot at 2, and you draw a vertical line through it. Again, comparing 13 and 14, 13, x equals 2, that's a vertical line up and down, crossing the x-axis at the value of 2. There's my vertical line crossing the x value of 2, crossing the x-axis at 2. Now, if I have y equals -3, that's going to be a horizontal line crossing the y-axis at -3. So if you go to the y-axis, you go to -3, put a dot there, and then draw a horizontal line right through there. So again, x equals a number is a vertical line, y equals a number is a horizontal line. I mean, and you could even take these, and we could think of them logically with the XY table, like number 14. If you thought of an input-output table, all this says that your y values have to be -3, -3, -3, -3. You could put in any numbers you want for the x values because there's no x involved. And you would get that same flat line going left to right. Or you could also think of this as y equals mx plus b, but there is no m value. There is no x value. So it would really be y equals 0x. There is no x plus b. So you know that the slope is 0, which means that it's totally flat like the floor, right?
Yeah.
But the b value, you do know it's -3. So it crosses at -3 and it's totally flat. There's many different ways of looking at this. Or you could just remember x equals a number is a vertical line, y equals a number is a horizontal line. That's the easiest way to learn it. Okay, let's move on. Number 15. Number 15, you don't have y by itself. So what do we have to do right there? Divide everything by -3. Now when I say everything, I'm talking even the invisible number 1 right in front of x. You're going to divide that by -3. The -6, you're going to divide by -3. So when you divide everything by -3, you're going to have a new slope-intercept form equation. Y equals, yes, -1/3. You don't want the negative sign on the bottom. Let's put it up on top. So let's put -1/3 with an x. And then plus 2. Y plus 2, because a -6 divided by a -3 is a positive 2. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So there's your slope-intercept form equation. Now we could graph it. Where does it cross the y-axis? At 2. What do I do from that point? Do I rise up or do I drop? Drop. How many units do I drop?
1.
-1 is the rise. So you drop 1 and you run 3. And you always run to the left or to the right?
Left. Right.
To the right, always. You always run in a positive direction. So -1/3 is down 1 over 1, 2, 3. And you put a dot right there. Connect your dots.
That's a negative slope.
That is a negative slope. And not only that, you know it's negative slope because the slope is -1/3. Okay. Number 16. Let's get y by itself. What do I do? Add 2 here. And of course, you're going to add the 2 to the 10 because that's the only one you could actually add it to. So you're going to have -4y equals -3x plus 12. My final step would be to do what? Divide by -4. That's right. Divide by -4. Divide by -4. So my new slope-intercept form equation is going to be y equals positive 3 divided by 4x, and then -3. Let me do the -3 in red to show the difference between our slope and our y-intercept. So the slope obviously is in blue. The y-intercept is obviously in red right there. So how do I start graphing? By looking at my b value. What's my b value? So -3 on the y is down here. Put a dot right there at -3 on the y. And then from that point, I'm going to rise how much? 3. And run how much? 4. So I rise 1, 2, 3. I run 1, 2, 3, 4. Way on the edge. But that's okay. Connect your dots.
And that is positive slope.
And that is a positive slope. And you could even be more specific. Allison, what would the slope actually be? More than just positive. Positive what? Allison, check it out. Isn't this in slope-intercept form?
Yeah.
What's the slope?
3/4.
Positive 3/4. Okay. But yes, that's a way to graph using y equals mx plus b. If you need help on this homework, watch the previous videos.